The spaceship floated in the docking bay like an old, forgotten toy. Its hull was dull and scratched. Parts of it looked bent and worn. Commander Eric Morrison stared at it through the viewing window and frowned. "This can't be right," he said. Lisa Garrett, his chief engineer, stood beside him. Her face showed the same disappointment. "The Galactic Confederation gave us this?" she asked. Eric nodded. "The GCS Perseverance, our first official ship as members of the Confederation. 2 weeks ago, Earth had finally been accepted into the Galactic Confederation after 50 years of waiting. Humans had been so excited. They thought they would get new technology, new ships, and a chance to explore the stars alongside the other alien races. Instead, they got this. It looks like it might fall apart if we sneeze near it," Lisa said. Eric sighed and walked toward the entry door. They had to at least look inside. A tall, blue-skinned alien with 4 arms waited for them at the ship's entrance. This was Admiral Genkar, their Confederation contact. "Commander Morrison," the alien said with a slight bow. "I trust you find your assignment adequate." Eric tried to keep his face neutral. "It's certainly unexpected, Admiral." The alien's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "The Perseverance was built by the Viridians, one of our most advanced member species. Though it is no longer considered modern by our standards, it should be quite impressive to humans." Lisa walked around the ship's outer hull, running her hand along a deep scratch. "How old is it?" she asked. "Merely 120 of your Earth years," Genkar replied. "Practically new." Eric and Lisa exchanged looks. For humans, a ship that old would be in a museum, not active service. "What are our orders?" Eric asked. The Admiral handed him a small device. "The Perseverance will patrol Sector 17, a peaceful region with little activity. You have 6 months to make this vessel operational for basic duties. If you succeed, the Confederation may consider giving humans more responsibility." Eric took the device. "And if we fail?" Genkar's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "Then perhaps humans are not ready for space after all. Lesser species must prove themselves before earning better equipment." The words stung. Eric felt his face grow hot. "We'll make it work." "I'm sure you will try," Genkar said. "Your crew arrives tomorrow. The ship is yours now." With that, the Admiral turned and left. Lisa kicked the ship's hull gently. "Lesser species. Is that what they think of us?" Eric shook his head. "Apparently." They entered the ship together. The inside was as bad as the outside. Dust covered the control panels. Some screens were cracked. The seats were designed for aliens with different body shapes, making them uncomfortable for humans. "This will take more than 6 months to fix," Lisa said, checking systems on her tablet. "The power core is barely functioning. Life support is minimal. And the engines." She stopped and looked closer at her readings. "Wait, that's strange." "What?" Eric asked, looking over her shoulder. "The power core. It's different from anything I've seen before. The energy readings don't make sense." She looked up at him. "I need to run more tests. But there might be something interesting here after all." Eric walked to the main view screen and wiped away the dust. From here, he could see Earth through the docking bay windows. His home. The planet that was counting on him and this crew to prove that humans belonged among the stars. "We have 6 months," he said. "Let's show the Confederation what humans can do with their garbage." Lisa nodded, already working. "I'll contact John Kelly and Dr. Alan Patel. If anyone can help us understand this power core, it's them." Eric smiled for the first time since teeing the ship. The Confederation had given them junk, expecting failure. But they didn't understand humans very well. Humans had a long history of turning one person's trash into another's treasure. "Get me a full crew list," Eric said. "We're going to need the best Earth has to offer." 1 week later, the GCSS Perseverance was filled with activity. People moved through the narrow hallways carrying tools and equipment. The sound of metal being cut and welded echoed throughout the ship. Eric stood in the center of the bridge, looking at the team he had gathered. Lysa was there, her hands dirty with grease as she worked on the control panels. Next to her stood John Kelly, a tall man with broad shoulders who had designed weapons for Earth's defense forces. In the corner, Dr. Alan Patel sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by strange devices and tablets filled with calculations. "So what have we learned?" Eric asked. Lisa wiped her hands on a cloth. "The good news is that most of the basic systems can be fixed. The bad news is that they'll still be 100 years out of date by Confederation standards." John nodded. "The weapons are useless. Energy output too weak to damage even the smallest enemy ships." But Alan said, looking up from his work with excited eyes, "The power core is amazing. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Eric walked over to him. "Explain." Alan stood up and showed Eric his tablet. "The Viridians who built this ship used a different approach to energy production. The Confederation thinks it's inefficient because it doesn't match their current methods. But it's not inefficient, it's just different." "Different how?" Lisa asked, joining them. Alan's eyes grew wide. "It doesn't just generate energy, it can transform it. If we reconfigure the systems, we could channel energy in ways the original designers never imagined." John frowned. "Is that even allowed? The Confederation gave us this ship to repair, not completely change." Eric thought about Admiral Genkar's words about lesser species and felt a surge of determination. "They gave us this ship to operate, however we see fit. They expect us to fail. I say we surprise them." The three others looked at each other. "What exactly do you have in mind?" Lisa asked. Over the next days, they worked tirelessly. Lisa discovered that the ship's hull contained traces of a rare material that could absorb energy when properly activated. John adapted Earth's electromagnetic weapons to work with the alien technology. Alan spent hours studying the power core, testing its limits. Eric brought in more specialists, people whose ideas were too unusual or untested for normal Earth projects, the kind of thinkers who saw possibilities where others saw problems. 2 weeks into their work, Lisa called Eric to the engine room. When he arrived, the large space was filled with a soft blue glow. "Watch this," she said. She turned a dial, and a beam of energy shot from a device into a small piece of the hull material. Instead of burning through it, the energy seemed to disappear into the metal. The piece began to glow. "The hull can absorb energy," Lisa explained. "Most ships vent excess energy into space, but we can use it to strengthen our defenses instead." Eric touched the glowing metal. It wasn't hot, just vibrating slightly. "Can we do this to the whole ship?" he asked. Lisa nodded. "It will take time, but yes." In another section of the ship, John showed Eric his progress on the weapon systems. "I've modified our EMP technology to work with the alien systems," he explained. "Instead of just disabling electronics, it can now capture and redirect energy." "Show me," Eric said. John pointed to a small target across the room. He fired what looked like a weak energy pulse. When it hit the target, there was no explosion. Instead, the target simply powered down. "It shuts down systems without destroying them," John said. "No one else in the Confederation has weapons like this. They're all about bigger explosions and more destruction." At night, when most of the crew slept, Eric, Lisa, John, and Alan would meet in the bridge to discuss their progress. They called their project Phoenix, the rebirth of an old ship into something new. "The Confederation expects reports on our basic repairs," Eric reminded them. "We need to keep our real work hidden until we're ready." The others agreed. Whenever Confederation officials checked in, they showed only the standard repairs, fixing life support, engines, and basic systems. The real work happened behind closed doors, out of sight. What the Confederation saw as the weakest ship in their fleet was slowly becoming something else entirely, something no one expected. 1 month into their work, the Perseverance looked very different on the inside. The crew had hidden their changes behind panels and false walls. If a Confederation inspector came aboard, they would see only basic repairs. But beneath the surface, the ship was becoming something new. Lisa worked late one night in a sealed section of the ship. She carefully connected thin wires to the inner hull. Each wire linked to the power core, creating a network throughout the entire ship. When she finished a section, she ran a small test. The hull glowed blue briefly, then returned to normal. "How's it going?" Eric asked, entering the room with 2 cups of coffee. Lisa took one gratefully. "Slow but steady. I've finished about 40% of the hull. When it's done, the whole ship will be able to absorb energy attacks and redirect them, and no one can detect it." She shook her head. "The changes are at the molecular level. Unless they take apart the hull piece by piece, they'll never know." Eric smiled. "Good. Keep it that way." In another part of the ship, John and a small team worked on the weapons systems. They had removed the standard Confederation energy cannons and replaced them with their own design. "The problem with current weapons is waste," John explained to a young engineer. "They throw huge amounts of energy at a target, hoping to overwhelm it. Our system is smarter." He showed her a diagram on his tablet. "We capture enemy fire, channel it through the modified core, and can send it back in a controlled burst. Less power, more precise." The young engineer looked impressed. "So we're turning their weapons against them?" John nodded. "Exactly. And since we're not generating the energy ourselves, our power signature stays low. They won't see us as a threat until it's too late." Meanwhile, Dr. Alan Patel had turned his quarters into a makeshift lab. His walls were covered with equations and diagrams. He barely slept, too excited by what he was discovering about the Viridian power core. There was a knock at his door. It was Eric. "Any progress?" Eric asked, looking at the chaos of papers. Alan's eyes were bright with excitement. "More than progress. A breakthrough." He pointed to a complex equation. "The core doesn't just generate or transform energy. It can manipulate it in space." Eric frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," Alan said, "that with the right modifications, we could create controlled gravity fields around the ship." "Gravity weapons?" Eric asked, surprised. Alan nodded. "Not just weapons. Shields, tractor beams, maybe even short-range gravity jumps. The Viridians were far more advanced than the Confederation realizes. They just never used the technology for warfare." Eric looked thoughtful. "How soon can you have a working prototype?" 2 weeks for a small-scale test," Alan said. "But I'll need more help." "You'll get it," Eric promised. Later that night, Eric met with Lisa, John, and Alan in a secure room. They each reported on their progress. "We're doing good work," Eric said when they finished. "But we need to be careful. Tomorrow, Admiral Genkar is sending an inspector to check our progress on the repairs." Lisa looked worried. "Are our modifications hidden well enough?" "They should be," John said. "We've kept everything behind secured panels with standard locks, unless they do a deep scan." "Which they might," Eric interrupted. "The Confederation doesn't trust us. That's why Dr. Karen Wright will be handling the inspection." Karen was their diplomatic officer, an expert in Confederation law and customs. "She'll keep the inspector focused on the standard systems," Eric explained. "Make sure your teams know to stick to the story. We're just making basic repairs, nothing more." The others nodded. "How much longer until Project Phoenix is ready?" Eric asked. Lisa thought for a moment. "At current pace, we need at least 2 more months." "We may not have that long," Eric said, bringing up a star map on the table's display. Intelligence reports show increased correction activity in nearby sectors. The others tensed. The Corrections were known as fierce warriors who attacked without warning. "If they come to our sector, we'll have no choice but to engage," Eric said. "Let's hope we're ready when that happens." As if the universe heard his words, an alarm began to sound throughout the ship. The alarm blared throughout the Perseverance. Eric rushed to the bridge, with Lisa, John, and Alan close behind. The rest of the crew scrambled to their stations. "Report," Eric called as he entered the bridge. A young officer named Steve looked up from his screen. "Unidentified ship at the edge of our sensor range, sir. It's not responding to hails." Eric took his seat in the command chair. "Show me." The main screen flickered to life. A sleek, dark ship moved toward them. Its design was aggressive, with sharp angles and what looked like heavy weapons. "Magnify," Eric ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing markings on the hull. John leaned forward. "Coraxian scout ship. They're not supposed to be in this sector." Eric frowned. "What's our status?" Lisa checked her console. "Our official systems are at 70%. Project Phoenix is only partially implemented." "Can we run?" Alan asked. Steve shook his head. "They're faster than us, sir. They'll catch us before we reach the nearest Confederation outpost." Eric thought quickly. According to protocol, they should retreat and call for proper Confederation forces. But that would mean revealing how unprepared they were. It would confirm what Admiral Genkar already believed, that humans weren't ready for space. "What about our modifications?" Eric asked quietly, so only his senior officers could hear. Lisa hesitated. "The hull energy network is only at 60% coverage. John's weapons are installed but not fully tested. And Alan's gravity system is still theoretical." "Sir," Steve called out, "the Coraxian ship has changed course. They're heading straight for us. Weapons appear to be powering up." Everyone on the bridge tensed. The Coraxians were known for their aggressive tactics. They wouldn't hesitate to destroy an outdated Confederation vessel. "They think we're easy prey," Eric said. Then he made his decision. "Prepare for combat. Activate all systems, including Phoenix protocols." Lisa looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir, they're not tested." "Now we'll test them," Eric replied. "John, ready your weapons system. Lisa, divert all non-essential power to the hull network. Alan, monitor the power core. Let's see what this old ship can really do." The crew moved quickly, activating systems that had never been used in real combat. "Coraxian ship is firing," Steve shouted. On the screen, they watched as the enemy vessel released a powerful energy beam directly at them. "Braced for impact," Eric ordered. But instead of the violent shake they expected, there was only a slight vibration. The bridge lights flickered briefly. "Hull integrity at 100%, Lisa reported, sounding surprised. "The energy network is absorbing the attack." She looked up with a smile. "It's working, sir." "The Coraxians are firing again," Steve warned. Eric nodded to John. "Now it's our turn. Fire when ready." John pressed a sequence of commands on his console. Firing system engaged. The Perseverance hummed with power. Then, a concentrated beam shot out from the ship. It wasn't particularly bright or dramatic, just a focused pulse of energy. It struck the Coraxian vessel with precision. The effect was immediate. The enemy ship's lights flickered and went out. It began to drift, its weapons and engines dead. "Direct hit," John reported. "Their systems are offline, but the ship is intact." The bridge crew stared in amazement at the screen. "We just disabled a Coraxian warship," Lisa said in disbelief. Alan checked his readings. "Their life support is still functioning. The crew is alive, just powerless." Eric stood up from his chair. "Take us alongside them. Prepare a boarding party. I want that ship captured intact." He turned to his officers. "No Confederation vessel has ever captured a Coraxian ship before. I think we just made history." As the Perseverance moved toward the disabled enemy vessel, Eric knew that everything had changed. Their secret modifications had worked better than anyone expected. But he also knew that such a victory wouldn't stay secret for long. "Send a message to Confederation Command," he ordered. Tell them we've engaged and disabled a Coraxian scout ship that violated our patrol sector. Request instructions regarding prisoners. Steve nodded. Yes, sir. What should I tell them about how we managed to disable a Coraxian ship with an outdated vessel? Eric smiled. Just tell them that human ingenuity can be quite surprising. Word spread quickly throughout the Galactic Confederation. A human crew in an outdated ship had captured a Coraxian vessel intact. It was something no other species had managed to do in the 50 years of Coraxian attacks. 3 days after the battle, Eric sat in his office reviewing reports. The Coraxian prisoners were now in Confederation custody. Their ship was being studied by human engineers. But the biggest change was how other species now looked at the humans. There was a knock at his door. Come in, Eric called. Dr. Karen Wright entered. As the ship's diplomatic officer, she had been dealing with the sudden flood of messages from Confederation officials. How bad is it? Eric asked. Karen sat down across from him. Mixed news. We're heroes to most of the Confederation. The smaller species especially are celebrating our victory. But the leadership isn't happy, Eric finished for her. She nodded. High Commander Rexer of the Military Council is demanding an inspection of the Perseverance. He wants to know how an outdated ship defeated a Coraxian scout. Eric frowned. When? He'll be here tomorrow. His message said he's bringing a team of technical experts. This was what Eric had feared. If they discovered the full extent of their modifications, there could be serious consequences. The Confederation had strict rules about technology sharing and development. What are our options? He asked. Karen had prepared for this. As a newly admitted species, we have certain rights under Confederation law. We can delay a full inspection for up to 30 days if we claim we need to protect our innovations. Will that work? It should buy us some time, Karen said, but not much. Rexer is powerful, and he's suspicious. Some in the Confederation fear that if humans can do this with their oldest ship, what might we do with better technology? Eric stood up and paced the room. So we've gone from being ignored to being seen as a threat. Success comes with its own problems, Karen replied. Eric's communication device buzzed. It was Lisa calling from engineering. Commander, we've detected unusual activity at the edge of our patrol sector, she said. Multiple ships approaching at high speed. Confederation vessels? Eric asked. No, Lisa replied, her voice tense. Coraxian energy signatures, a lot of them. Eric's heart raced. I'm on my way to the bridge. He and Karen hurried through the ship's corridors. When they reached the bridge, the main screen showed a disturbing sight. At least 12 Coraxian warships were moving toward their position. They've assembled a fleet, John said as Eric entered. They're hunting us specifically. Eric took his command chair. How do you know? They're broadcasting on open channels, Steve explained. They're calling us the Dishonor Ship. They're out for revenge. Eric looked around at his crew. Their faces showed concern, but not fear. They believed in what they had built. How much time do we have? He asked. Alan checked the sensors. At their current speed, about 6 hours before they reach us. Can we reach the nearest Confederation base? Lisa shook her head. Not in time. And even if we could, their forces aren't strong enough to face this many Coraxian ships. Eric considered their options. Running wasn't possible. Fighting 12 warships seemed impossible, even with their modifications. Calling for help would only reveal how vulnerable the sector really was. Sir, John said, I've analyzed their formation. They're spreading out to prevent us from jumping to hyperspace. They want to trap us. Eric nodded. Then we need to change the battlefield. He pointed to a nearby location on the star map. This uninhabited planet with its asteroid belt. If we position ourselves there, we can limit their attack angles. Lisa looked doubtful. That's dangerous. Navigating an asteroid field at combat speed isn't easy. No, Eric agreed. But it's better than facing them in open space. He turned to Alan. How's your gravity manipulation system coming along? Alan straightened up. It's still experimental. I've only tested it in the lab, but theoretically, it could work on a larger scale. Good, Eric said, because I think we just found our testing ground. He looked at each of his senior officers. They think they're hunting us. Let's show them what happens when you corner humans. Eric pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. The Perseverance moved quickly toward the asteroid belt surrounding the uninhabited planet. Huge rocks and chunks of ice floated in a thick band around the small, rocky world. It was dangerous territory for any ship, but Eric was counting on that danger. We're approaching the asteroid field, Steve announced from the helm. Entering in 30 seconds. Eric nodded. Slow to half speed. Lisa, divert extra power to the sensors. We need to map a safe path. Already done, Lisa replied. I've also reinforced the forward hull network. If we bump anything, we should be able to absorb the impact. The ship slowed as it reached the edge of the asteroid field. Through the view screen, they could see rocks of all sizes spinning slowly in the darkness of space. The Correction fleet has changed course to follow us, John reported. They'll reach the asteroid belt in about 10 minutes. Eric turned to Alan. Status on the gravity system. Alan looked up from his station. I've converted 3 of our sensor arrays into gravity projectors. They'll only work at close range, but they should let us manipulate the smaller asteroids. Good, Eric said. John, what's our weapons status? All systems ready, John replied. But even with our modifications, we can't take on 12 warships at once. We won't have to, Eric said. He called up a tactical display. We're going to use the asteroids as cover and weapons. Hit and run tactics. The crew looked at the display as Eric outlined his plan. The Perseverance would hide among the larger asteroids, using them as shields. When Correction ships passed by, they would use Alan's gravity system to pull smaller asteroids into their path, or push them away to create escape routes. It's risky, Lisa said. It's our only option, Eric replied. We can't outrun them, and we can't fight them all directly. The crew took their positions as the Perseverance entered the asteroid field. Steve's hands moved quickly over the controls, guiding the ship between the floating rocks. Despite the ship's age, it responded well to his commands. The modifications to the navigation systems are working, Lisa said with pride. We're more maneuverable than we should be. Eric watched as they moved deeper into the field. Find us a good hiding spot, preferably near some smaller asteroids we can use. Steve guided the ship behind a cluster of large asteroids. Here, sir, we have good cover and clear sensor views of the approach vectors. Power down all non-essential systems, Eric ordered. Minimum energy signature. The lights dimmed as the ship went into stealth mode. On the tactical display, they watched as the Correction fleet reached the edge of the asteroid field. They're splitting up, John said. 4 groups of 3 ships each. They're going to sweep the field. Clever, Eric murmured, but it also divides their strength. They waited in silence as the first group of Correction ships entered the asteroid field. The enemy vessels moved cautiously, using energy beams to blast smaller asteroids out of their path. They're making a lot of noise, Lisa observed, wasting energy. And giving away their position, John added. Eric watched as one group of ships moved closer to their hiding spot. Get ready. Alan, target that cluster of smaller asteroids. When I give the word, pull them toward the lid Correction ship. Alan's fingers hovered over his controls. Ready, sir. The 3 enemy ships moved closer, their powerful engines glowing in the darkness of space. They were searching methodically, weapons ready. Now, Eric ordered. Alan activated the gravity projectors. Outside the ship, invisible forces grabbed a dozen small asteroids and pulled them rapidly toward the lid Correction vessel. The rocks accelerated, gaining speed. The correction ship detected the incoming asteroids too late. Several smashed into its hull, damaging its engines and weapons. It began to spin out of control. "Direct hit," Steve exclaimed. The other two correction ships immediately turned toward the asteroid cluster where the attack had come from. "They've spotted us," John warned. "They're charging weapons." Eric gripped his chair. "Lisa, full power to the hull network." "Steve, prepare to move on my mark." The enemy ships fired, their energy beams cutting through space toward the Perseverance. "Mark," Eric shouted. Steve yanked the controls hard. The Perseverance shot upward, narrowly avoiding the correction energy beams. The ship shuddered as it scraped past an asteroid. "Hull network holding at 90%, Lisa reported, "but the power core is heating up. These evasive maneuvers are pushing our systems hard." Eric gripped his chair as the ship twisted between floating rocks. "John, return fire when you have a clear shot." "Targeting," John replied. His fingers moved quickly over the weapons console. "Firing." The Perseverance's modified weapons fired a precise beam that struck one of the pursuing correction ships. Its engines flickered and died. "2 down, 10 to go," John said. But their success was short-lived. The disabled correction ships had sent distress calls. The remaining enemy vessels were now converging on their position. "We can't keep this up," Lisa warned. "The power core is reaching critical levels. We need to vent excess energy or it might overload." Alan looked up from his station, his eyes wide with an idea. "Wait, don't vent it. Use it." "What do you mean?" Eric asked. Alan rushed to Lisa's station. "If we channel the excess energy from the core into the hull network, we could create a massive energy field around the entire ship." Lisa caught on quickly. "Like a supercharged version of our absorption system." "Exactly," Alan nodded. "But instead of just absorbing energy, we could release it all at once. Like a giant pulse." "Would it work?" Eric asked. Alan looked uncertain. "In theory, yes. But we've never tried it at this scale. If it fails, we'll be defenseless," Lisa finished. A violent shake interrupted them as a correction energy beam grazed the ship. "Hull network down to 70%, Lisa called out. "2 more hits like that, and we're in trouble." Eric made his decision. "Do it. Channel the excess energy into the hull." Alan and Lisa immediately began working, their hands flying over their consoles. The rest of the crew held their breath. "Sir, all 9 remaining correction ships are moving to surround us," Steve reported. "We're being boxed in." "Hold position," Eric ordered. "How long until the energy field is ready?" 2 minutes, Lisa replied. "But the core temperature is still rising." "This is dangerous, sir." Eric nodded. "I know, but we're out of options." The ship shook again as another enemy beam hit them. "Hull network at 50%, Lisa called. "Core temperature reaching critical levels." Alan looked up from his work. "Almost there. The hull is fully charged. When we release the energy, it should create a pulse that will disable any electronic system within range." "Including ours?" Eric asked. "Possibly," Alan admitted. "But our systems are already connected to the hull network. They might survive." Another hit rocked the ship. Warning alarms blared throughout the bridge. "Hull network failing," Lisa reported. "Core temperature beyond safety limits. It's now or never, sir." Eric looked at his crew. They had worked miracles with this old ship, turning the Confederation's cast-off into something powerful. Now it was time for the final test. "Release the pulse," he ordered. Alan pressed a sequence of commands. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship began to glow with a bright blue light. It spread from the hull, growing more intense by the second. Energy levels spiking. Lisa shouted over the alarms. "Brace for discharge." The blue glow suddenly expanded outward in all directions. It moved like a wave through space, passing through asteroids and continuing toward the correction ships. When it reached the enemy vessels, their lights flickered and died. One by one, The mighty warships went dark, drifting powerless among the asteroids. On the Perseverance, systems flickered. For a terrifying moment, everything went black. Then, slowly, the emergency lights came on. Power returning, Lisa said, checking her systems. Core temperature dropping. We're still here. Eric looked at the view screen, now showing the disabled correction fleet floating harmlessly around them. All enemy ships are powerless, John reported with amazement. Life support is still functioning, but weapons, engines, communications, all disabled. Before Eric could respond, a new alert sounded. Sir, multiple ships approaching. Steve called out. Confederation signatures. It seems our distress call got through after all, Karen said. The view screen showed several Confederation warships entering the area, led by a large command vessel. As they watched, a familiar face appeared on the communication screen. It was High Commander Rexer himself. Commander Morrison, Rexer said, his 4 eyes blinking in surprise as he surveyed the scene. Would you care to explain how your outdated patrol ship managed to disable an entire correction battle fleet?